Okay, please go ahead.
Okay, so good morning. This is the Town Services and Outreach Committee of the Town Council for Amherst, and it is April 17, 2025, and we are convening the meeting at 10:05 a.m. Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2025 extended the open meeting law provision through June 30, 2027. That allows us to hold this meeting by remote and hybrid means, and therefore this meeting is being conducted by remote means, and members of the public are able to access the meeting through Zoom or by telephone. And I just want to remind everybody that this meeting is being recorded. Go through the committee and make sure that everybody can hear and we can hear them. So I'll start with Bob Hagner.
I'm here.
And George Ryan.
I'm here.
That's Ryan. Councilor Lord.
Present.
And Jennifer Taub.
Here.
And I noticed that we also have Guilford Mooring. The Superintendent of Public Works is in attendance at the meeting, and so that we can proceed. And to go through the agenda, we'll start to see if there's any public comment. There are no town manager appointments. That's placed on the agenda for every meeting in case there are. There were no minutes submitted to us for review and approval. The major discussion today is going to be about the Transportation and Parking Commission amendments to the Town Council policy regarding control and regulation of the public ways. We will be talking about the plans for the Heatherstone review of the mini roundabouts that have been installed. The one item that we will not reach today and not discuss today is listed as item 7 on the posted agenda. The waste hauler program, town manager is not able to join us, and we needed a report from him about the request for proposals, and it's not he's not here to provide that update if there is an update to give us. And we were referred the public urination bylaw. I put it on the agenda. If we have time, we can take a couple of minutes to talk about how we want to proceed with considering that proposed bylaw. Jennifer, your hand is up, so you must have something you want to ask about the agenda.
Well, I did want to ask if Guilford can provide an update on the waste hauler RFP, and I also wanted to ask if that could just be on every agenda so we can get an update, because otherwise it kind of gets lost. But you know, if possible for Guilford to make an update, that would be helpful. Thank you. He can't.
He's
No, I don't have any information.
Yeah, I think that this is in Paul's area right now. We need to hear from him.
Can we just have it on the agenda as a regular, you know, if there's no update, there's no update, but just to ask? I mean, it could just be waste hauler update on every agenda.
Yeah, I'll talk to Paul about that, see if we can get, if he can provide an update in some fashion. In any event, and I'm not sure whether it's going to be tied up in the budget questions or not now. Yes.
that was appropriated for this year, especially
It is available. The
so
question
that
is-
we didn't have to wait till the next fiscal year. Isn't it the same as for the charter review? I mean, that the council voted for it this year.
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that because we don't know what he's going to propose to make.
I'm just saying it's not part of the next fiscal year's budget. So why
Yeah,
would
I
that?
know. I know it's complicated.
But no, it actually doesn't seem complicated. I'm really, what?
uh,
If it's not part of the
I
fiscal year 26
I
budget.
don't know the answer to the question that you're asking. I don't know what he's going to propose because
But didn't the council
money is
vote
money.
to appropriate it? For
It
this
is
year?
it is appropriated. It is available for him to use if, but whether he's going to propose a change or not, I can't tell that. That's a question that we have to ask Paul.
Why would that even be an issue? That's why
Well, yeah, this is, I'm not
Okay.
sure that we can go further than that at this point. But I know your point. I know what you're raising. In any event, if the member of the public who's now present wishes to make public comment, that's the next item on the agenda, and her hand is up. So I'd like to bring her in to the meeting so that we can hear public comment. And public comment, we asked to try and limit to 3 minutes, and it can be on any matter that's relevant to the committee, whether it's going to be discussed today or on the agenda. So good morning, Darcy.
Hi, good morning. I wasn't planning on giving a public comment, but I thought there was going to be an update. So I'm a little confused about what's happening. I'm speaking on behalf of Zero Waste Amherst. And my, this body, thankfully, voted in June of 2024 to make that recommendation that the town manager move forward with an RFP. And then the council unanimously approved it and then voted for the $75,000 for a consultant. And that was, I guess I just don't understand, because Guilford made it quite clear that it's very normal for DPW to seek consultants for RFPs, and he was very familiar with the cost and with the process. And I would like this group to try to push it forward in whatever way possible. It's not clear why it's being held up. I understand that there's a lot of work that the town manager has to do around the budget that's unrelated to this, but work does get done during this period of time by the town. So I'm just really urging this group to do whatever it can to try to move forward its own recommendation. I think it was very uplifting almost a year ago when you did pass the motion. So whatever you can do to push it forward, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Darcy. Appreciate the comment and recommendation. So today's agenda, however, what I wanted to do, and I apologize to the committee that the draft that was sent yesterday that I was unable to do it earlier. Time demands on my time have been rather overwhelming as of late, and so it just happened. I hope you've had a chance to look at it. What I was attempting to do was to create a report that would summarize where we were after the last discussion and went through the meeting very carefully to make sure that I was capturing the essential points that were being raised. And so we want to try and make sure that everyone is comfortable with what is presented in the draft, take recommendations for changes to discuss them, and then if at all possible, see if we have a final document that we can vote on as being the proposal that on which we are seeking comment, and if so, where we would like to go to get comments. And so I think that's the major point. I know that Councilor Ryan has been giving some significant consideration to the changes that need to be made to the town council policy on the public ways, and has done some drafting work on that. And relying on his expertise to make sure that what I reported is correct and is working in parallel to what he is developing and his draft for the changes that he thinks we need to be considering. So does that sound reasonable process for today? So I guess I'll open it up for general comments, and then we can just quickly go through section by section and see if there are any if need be, but start with general comments, if any. Councilor Ryan.
First of all, Andy, thank you for doing this. It's a lot of work. I don't have any broad general comments. I have specific things as we go through the document. So I would suggest that that's probably the best way to start. But again, just thank you for preparing this. My sense is that eventually what we will produce, if we think about deliverables, one would be a town council policy on the public ways, which incorporates through track changes, the kinds of changes that we are proposing. So as we go through this document, I'll be comparing that to what I've begun to draft, and eventually the council or the committee will need to look at that, make sure that it's correct, because sometimes my eyes start getting crossed. The second thing would be the report, which is what you're giving us here. That's the most immediate thing that goes to the council in the short term, sort of updating them on what we're doing and giving them a broad sense of the kinds of changes that we're proposing. And the final, so that's the short term immediate. The longer term is a policy document that's been redlined so that they can see what changes are being proposed. And the third is a committee charge that, again, you've got it in this report, and we'll be going through that later. But the charge will state what this body is supposed to do, the membership, et cetera, et cetera. So those are the three things that I'm imagining we are trying to create, and the most immediate one is the one in front of us today.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I did not do work on the committee charge. I decided that I would concentrate on the report because I thought that the committee charge would flow from the report. And we also, I think, want to get at least invite Transportation Advisory Committee and the Commission on Disabilities to provide their comments, as well as hear from staff. Jennifer?
Yeah, so I have a couple of questions. So the report, this report, would that be your regular report to the council, or would this be an agenda item for the council to discuss, or we wouldn't do that until we have a charge that we're recommending? I guess I was kind of just trying to get a sense of when we'd really ask for council input.
Yeah, we have a council vice president with us today. And I don't know, I was not anticipating it would be an agenda item. I have not asked that it be placed on the agenda necessarily. It would be a report, and as committees do at various times, reports do get made, and comments are invited back to the committee. CRC has done that on several different occasions, for example. Councilor Ryan?
So that's my sense at the moment that this report would be submitted as the regular report that the chair makes, but it would ask for comments from councilors to be sent to the chair. As we all know, what often happens is that it's only when we finally get to council deliberation that colleagues suddenly start proposing all kinds of interesting ideas. And we often feel frustrated, like, well, why didn't you bring this to us a week or two ago instead of right here and now? But I think it's still going to happen. But my understanding is that Andy will submit this report and ask that colleagues send us comments that we could then incorporate into our discussion. And then the next step would be on the agenda, where it would be a full discussion, and what the councilors would have in front of them would be the proposed revised policy document, and I'm assuming also the proposed committee charge. And once they have that in front of them, then a discussion could take place. But until then, I think it's just soliciting comments, and hopefully some of our colleagues will do that, but we'll see.
Jennifer?
Logistical question. So I guess it's May 1st that we're going to be meeting with TAC. I guess my question is, we have two meetings on one day. When I entered in my calendar, I think I saw the same day. Yeah, it's May 1st. So I just wanted to confirm we will have both meetings. It's not that our meeting is going to happen when TAC meets.
The meeting on May 1st is actually a meeting of the District 2, and it's a district meeting. District 2 includes Echo Hill and Heatherstone Road residents and neighbors and frequent users of the road.
So I have it wrong. So there's no TAC meeting that we should be going to at 6:30? Okay.
No,
That's the Heatherstone Road. Got it. Okay, my mistake. I don't want to, okay, thanks.
And the District 2 councilors are looking for input on.
Okay, I just entered in my calendar wrong incorrectly. Thanks.
So shall we turn to the draft of the policy, the report? And I guess first was if we just take it, and I'll take notes. I don't know if there were minor changes, we might have been able to do it with somebody who is able to do track changes as we talk, but we don't know what kinds of changes there'll be. So I didn't set that up to do it that way. The first section tries to just generally introduce it and state our general support for creating a commission, Transportation Parking Commission, and what we think that will be gained by doing that. Purposes of creating a commission. Any comments on what is said there? So Ryan?
Thought it was fine. I think it emphasizes the key elements, transparency for the public and efficiency for staff. And it makes clear that we think that this is something that we hope the council will do. So I had no changes to the wording. I thought it was good.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay, then the next section is the one that I'm really relying on Councilor Ryan to help make sure is correct. But I went through carefully and tried to classify things, focusing not on organizing to coincide with the current policy, but to refer to the current policy. The obvious divisions are matters that we assign to TPC that will be final, where they can take final action, those that require referral, and a little bit of our reasoning behind those decisions as the work through it, and including language at one point to make it clear that anything that has been currently assigned within the existing policy on the public ways that is not mentioned is not subject to change. It's not proposed for change. So I don't know if Councilor Ryan?
So I don't know if it's possible for my colleagues to have open or accessible to them the actual policy document, because that can be useful at times to compare, because what we're doing here is basically going to make some changes to the existing document. So if you have that accessible to you, I've got it on my screen at the moment. It's a bit awkward going back and forth, but it's helpful to be able to look at the existing document, because in most cases we're leaving it as it is, but in certain places, like the very first item here in 2B, we're proposing a change. And I have a question about that change once we're ready to get to it. But it's just a suggestion if you can do it. If not, we'll still be able, I think, to have a productive discussion.
Would you like to proceed in the order of the policy or proceed in the order of the language in the proposed report?
I think we should focus on the language in the report, because that's what's going to go to the council. And I think what you want from us is agreement that this language is accurate as far as we can tell. And we don't have to get into too much of the particulars with the actual policy document at this point. That will come later. So I think we should probably focus on the language that you have in your report, but it will involve discussing and referring to the policy document occasionally. But I think we should focus on the language that you have.
Okay. I'll leave it to members of the committee as far as availability of reports. I don't know how we can put multiple things on the screen at the same time, unless you want to have that as the major document on the screen to compare, in which case we can have George share screen and put it on the screen. Bob?
I was just going to suggest that we just put a little parentheses in there that the outline, like 2B, that outline refers to the existing policy, just to make sure people, because somebody's going to pick this up and look at 2B. What is that? It doesn't make any sense to me. So I think if we just guide people that these 2B and 3G are part of the current policy document, refer to the policy document, that'll clear that up. It's just a small change.
Actually, that's a good suggestion, and probably it would make sense at the just before the section that says matters assigned to the TPC to make final decisions, put a sentence in there that in the next two sections references to our provisions in the current policy.
That's fine.
We could also point out that it is available, where it is available on the website. Councilor Ryan?
So if we want to get into the nitty gritty right now, in the existing policy document, 2B actually reads long-term requests. And so it's a bit confusing, but essentially these are requests. 2B refers to requests for long-term temporary reservations greater than 14 days, but not permanent. And what the current document says is that the town council delegates the town manager to designate to or his designee to review and act on requests for seasonal use of parking spots not greater than 180 days, up to 8 total parking spots, in conjunction with sidewalk, cafe, food and drink. So it's very localized to that particular issue. And currently it goes to the town manager. And we're proposing to send it to TPC. But that actually should probably read long-term. If someone's actually looking at the existing policy document, they'll see the phrase long-term, not short-term. But it's focused on uses not greater than 180 days, and it's focused on food, drink, and so on. And right now, Paul handles that. My comment on that is timeliness. Paul, I assume, can act fairly quickly on these things insofar as they come up, and that can be an issue for folks who are actually trying to make a change related to food, drink, etc. And the only question is, can TPC act quickly? And that's a question for Paul. And so at some point we will solicit Paul's input. But my question to him, given this proposed change, is, right now you handle it. Is that a real big burden for you? And if he says, I'd love to get rid of it, fine. Is timeliness an issue? And if he says, not really, then we're good. But if it is, I think we see TPC is going to be not the most agile. It's going to take a little time for things. They don't meet. Paul's in his office every day. TPC will meet once a month. So that's just a practical question for Paul. But right now, what we're proposing is to take this off his plate and put it on TPC's plate. It's technically a long-term parking request, but not a permanent one. So my only proposal is to change short-term to long-term, and I have in my document just as a question for Paul. And does that make sense? I mean, a question of my colleagues is, does that, that's my concern. And if you have any thoughts, or maybe it's not a real concern, I don't know. But this is focused on basically food, drink, cafe stuff. And usually that's timely. It's like, I can't wait 2 months for you to make a decision, or 3 months.
And you raised your question about calling it long-term, just as to let you know, and then we'll get to Jennifer. It did originally read long-term, or wait a minute, long-term under both, I believe, because the way it was originally drafted, and I changed it because it gets confusing as to what the difference is between what's being proposed there and in the next section.
I think it's between short-term, long-term, and permanent. So there are short-term changes, there are long-term changes, but not permanent. Then there are permanent changes. And my sense has been that the committee is willing to, hand off short and long-term, but does not want to hand off permanent. And any kind of permanent change is something that we feel the council should have final say as keeper of the public way. So I agree it is a little confusing, but it's a difference between a permanent change and a change that's short-term as defined up to 14 days and long-term, which is up to 180 days, but not permanent. So I don't know if that helps, or maybe that makes it more confusing, but that's my understanding: short-term, long-term, and permanent. So when you see permanent, your ears perk up and you think, do we want to give this up? And the sense I'm getting from the committee is we probably shouldn't. We don't want to. But short and long term, if it seems reasonable, we're willing to pass off to TPC or to Paul. In this case, Paul could just keep it because that's what he has at the moment. And so it's a question for Paul. and he might say, I'd love to give it up, great. Or he might say, well, maybe, anyway, so.
All I was gonna say is I agree.
Yeah, I guess the problem, the reason I changed it short term is that it's seasonal, not greater than 180 days. And so it was a question of what is the, how are we making the distinction as opposed to how it is labeled within the current policy. And that's where I was getting confused.
Well, assuming our colleagues actually do look at the existing policy document, I think we want to use that language always, so that they don't get like they'd be looking at two in the existing policy at 2B, and they would see long-term requests, and then to be looking at our report, which says short-term requests, and they'll be confused. So I'd rather have them. I think it's just a small change, Andy, but I think we should keep the language of the policy, and if we want to change that language, we could always make that recommendation at some point. But at this point, I think we're just trying to coordinate the report with the existing documents so that people can follow it.
Okay. I have a suggestion on how to deal with this, and then recognize Bob, and that is change the word back to long term. And in that introductory sentence that I was going to write, saying that references to the sections of the current policy, I'd say that both the title and the wording of the sections is according to the current policy. Just leave it at that. Bob?
Yeah, I was going to just add, I pulled up the policy, and the short-term requests are they're really less than 14 days for holidays and special events and things like that. They're not really for, cafe food and drink kinds of things. That's covered under B. But the language in the policy is a little confusing because long-term requests are separated from permanent requests. But, you could argue that 180 days is long-term. It's not. It's anyway. So, but 2B does refer to long-term requests.
So I will make that change.
It doesn't also say anything. The current policy doesn't say anything about the total number of parking spaces. It just says, I'll read it. It's just request for long-term temporary reservations, greater than 14 days, either cumulative or consecutive, but not permanent, And then there's section 1, town council remains keeper of the public way. So it's actually referred to the council, not to the town manager.
Currently, it says town manager.
Okay, I just pulled it off the website. And maybe this is out of date.
2B sub 1. Town council delegates to the town manager or designee authority to review and act on requests. It doesn't say that in the document you're looking at.
I just pulled it off the town website.
Okay, well, we'll have to double check that, but that document I have is clearly town manager. And
what's the date on your document? Because this one was amended June 1, 2020.
Okay. This is 2023.
Okay, so it's superseded. All right.
We'll double check it, but I believe
our
this is
town
what it
website.
currently reads.
That's our town
Can I
website.
Yeah.
just ask where you got that? Because the one I have is also 2020.
I just did.
Did you get it from the town website?
I'm on the town website.
I wish I knew.
I did the town.
Yeah, I'm not seeing it either, Bob, the current updated one.
It's just said, it's town council public waste policy, November 13, 2020. That's all.
Yeah, the one I have is adopted in 2019, last amended July 17, 2023.
All right, so here it is. Town policy
And there is the person who has the
Control and
answer.
Tina
regulation.
might be able to clarify.
I
it
just
with-
found it. Okay, I just found it.
All right.
One problem with
So-
our system is it keeps everything. Everything is preserved. And that is, I guess maybe that's just the way they work, but it can be very, very frustrating when you get 50,000 things and you're just looking for them anyway. Athena,
Anyway.
maybe you have an input here?
Yeah, because it
So
didn't, it
to-
didn't have a
Wait, wait,
full
wait,
screen.
Sorry.
Tina,
I got the right one now.
Okay.
Two.
So the most current is on you can get to it on the council page and then go to town policies, and the town council policy regarding the control and regulation of the public ways is there. The most recent version is amended July 17, 2023. So
Right, but if you just do a search, if you just do a search.
the
we-
search
That's a-
function
that's
on
a
our
mistake.
website,
We gotta fix that.
Never do that.
Our town website is really awful.
Yeah.
it's
Awful.
it's on the list, Bob. But if you all need, just let me know if you need a
No,
Word version for you to
I have
modify.
it, I have it.
Okay.
My experience is that when I do this, as Athena just said, you go to the actual policies and they are
Yeah.
always kept up to date. Athena and
Yeah.
the staff do a great job of keeping our policies. When we change them, which we do, they keep them up to date.
All right, sorry about that.
That's all right. It's
But it's easy to get confused for the
yes,
people,
yes, it is.
for the public to get confused.
Even right.
so the key question, going back to it in the 2023 policy, George, that's the one you were looking at. It says that it's assigned to the town manager.
That is correct. Yes.
It has the 8 parking spots in it too.
Yes, it has the parking spots. It has the town manager.
Spots in it.
And at the moment, we're proposing that it go to TPC.
Yeah.
And the question for Paul is he okay with that? And the
Yep.
assumption is he is, but I just would like to hear it from him.
Okay. So that takes care of that. Is there anything else for those, anything in the next paragraph? And other requests for permanent changes?
I don't have any, no.
Then going on to page 2, matters assigned to TPC to make recommendations. I won't go by paragraph, but is there anything in that section that is of concern?
So again, permanent, we want to come to the council. But we're asking TPC to, 1, hold a public hearing, and then 2, make a recommendation for town council to approve it. So I think that captures the language that we have here. So permanent or other requests, we want to keep that, and we want them to do in a sense, the dirty work. But when they're done, it comes to us for approval. And if we have questions or problems, we can send it back to them and ask for clarification, and they would be present to talk, blah, blah, blah. What we're going to also ask is that this not be sent to another committee. And that's, I think at the moment, something the document makes clear at the end when it reviews this, says, please don't send this to somebody else. And whether we change council rules of procedure or whether it's just a plea, but at the moment, that's where that stands.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I tried to we'll get to the TPC process question in that section. Jennifer?
Yeah, no, I may have been jumping down, because when George mentioned, I agree, I just thought, well, I'll wait to get to the bottom, that last paragraph, I just thought the opening sentence might have had a typo under recommendations to the council, that it just say, when TPC makes a recommendation to the council. We recommend that it not be referred.
You've jumped ahead, I think.
Yeah, so I'll wait till we get there.
Okay, you'll come back to that. I won't
Yeah.
go looking for it right now. Is there anything else that we want to talk to about matters assigned to TPC to make recommendations. If not, we can move on to TPC process.
Um, oh,
It's now the second sentence in there. I just want to get, it should have public comment and be able to hold public hearings as it determines appropriate. Do we want to be stronger than public hearings as it determines? Should we be saying it should hold public hearings? Jennifer?
I'm sorry, I raised my hand before you finished asking the question. My concern was just where it says presently DPW or planning staff, the second paragraph under the process, present proposals to the Commission on Disabilities. Since they'll have a representative on TPC, I just wonder if the new Commission on Disabilities will feel that we've taken some of the responsibility away. I mean, they've just been formed, and so I guess we should maybe discuss it with them. I don't know how they'll feel about the only way they'll interact on those matters is through the representative on the TPC. I don't know, they might be comfortable with it,
Well,
They might
one of the goals that Paul had was to end the process that now has DPW, it's usually DPW staff, attending 3 different meetings to present on the same issue. Because they come to TSO, they come to TAC, and they go, and then the formerly known as Disability Access Advisory Committee, they would go to those meetings, and they would essentially, if they're talking about the roundabout at Amity University, they would be presenting it at 3 different meetings. And there was a concern, Guilford could speak to it if he wishes, but there was a concern that a lot of time was being spent making the same presentation 3 times. And I think that one of the goals that Paul was reacting to was a plea to try and reduce the number of presentations on the same matter. And we'll achieve that if all of the presentation takes place at the commission meeting, Transportation and Parking Commission.
Yeah, I suppose we could keep it this way, and we'll hear if there's an objection, I'm sure.
Yeah, ultimately, council will have to make a decision on that if there's an objection and we feel that it still needs to be discussed. Bob?
Yeah, I'm getting back to your issue about how much really choice does the commission have in holding public hearings? It seems to me that they ought to be consistent with Massachusetts general law. Whatever the law requires, they should do it. Or the open records law, I'm not sure what applies, but it seems to be as consistent with Massachusetts laws
And the charter.
and the charter.
so you'd like language to that effect in here? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, I was just suggesting, rather
Yeah.
than as it deems appropriate,
Right.
just say, consistent with MGL and charter, whatever. Whatever the governing documents are, or the governing things are.
Mhm, mhm.
That takes it out of the hands of the.
Do you see where to put that in, Andy? Yeah,
Yeah, I think I know, I can
I
find.
think
where
that's
to
a good
put
point. That
that.
makes sense to me. It's very concrete, specific, as opposed to just, well, whatever they decide to
Whatever
do.
you decide, right?
Yeah.
Well, I guess we would assume that MGL and the charter require hearings in some places. Doesn't stop the council from being able to have additional hearings if it wishes, but they're not required. Are we giving the same freedom to the committee, to the commission?
Well, then say as it deems appropriate, so long as it's not required by law or something. In other words,
So long as it doesn't comply with the law.
it doesn't, right. So long as it's not required.
Yeah, that's, but I think I get the point.
Yeah,
We want to make sure that they are conscious of, they're holding all hearings as required by Mass General Law and the Charter, and otherwise as they determine appropriate.
right. That's fine.
Okay.
Something to that effect.
Anything, Council Ryan?
I actually want to go back up, but I don't want to do that until we're finished with this discussion. We're talking right now about TPC process, which is fine. But I have two little niggly questions about the small changes up above when we're ready, just when we're ready.
No one objects, go ahead.
Okay, you guys are gonna like this, but if you go up to 3C, long-term public way closures, we've been distinguishing between short-term, long-term, and permanent, and we want to have a say on permanent. And we've been passing off long-term and short-term either to the manager or to TPC. But here we have a long-term closure greater than 180 days. Again, in conjunction with expanding sidewalk, cafe, food and drink, and other retail areas. And what we're proposing here is that TPC will make a recommendation to the town council for final action. And if Paul agrees, I'm sorry. No, if Paul agrees to pass the previous authority off to TPC and timeliness is not an issue, the same question arises here. This is not a permanent, but but it's a long-term closure. Why does the council need to make final action here? I just a question. I don't recall our logic here. It seems we just want to make sure that any permanent changes are not instituted without our say so. But if it's, not a permanent change, but a long-term change, is there a problem here, or should we just leave it as it is? I guess is my question.
Actually, as you said, I had some thoughts about that section too. Jennifer? You muted though.
I'm sorry. I think I would like to keep it this way, because if you longer than 180 days with no closure could be permanent. I mean,
Right,
so
right.
so I think up to 180 days I'd be comfortable with.
But beyond that, it's too much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's no end to it. So
Mhm.
it's actually a good
Okay.
way to have a permanent change without it coming to the council.
True. Okay.
My question was, should we strike the words in conjunction with expanding sidewalk, cafe, food and drink and other retail areas? It's not about the purpose. And because there could be long-term closures for lots of reasons. So striking the words in conjunction with expanding the rest of the sentence. Should we strike that?
I'm
wondering
sorry,
if there's a-
what
yeah,
paragraph
yeah.
are you on?
Well, the existing document, if you look at 3C, which is what this is referring to, long-term public way closures. That's what we're looking at in the existing document. And the proposed change says long-term closures greater than 180 days, but the actual existing document says under 3C1 less than, excuse me, not greater than. So I wonder if it's a typo. Andy, and it's easy to do. Should the 3C in your report read long-term closures not greater than 180 days? Because that's what the actual existing document actually says. And currently the existing document has review for the town manager with monthly report. And we're proposing to send that to TPC, but then with recommendation to the council for final action. So that's where it seems like the existing policy and what this is saying are not in sync. And I don't know if that's a typo or if there's something that something we decided that I can't remember anymore. But it would seem, given the existing
So if
policy,
we're reading this correctly,
yeah,
so the existing policy calls long-term but not permanent up to 180 days.
that's right.
Right.
And the existing policy here does make that clear when it says for requests for seasonal sidewalk closures or road closures not greater than 180 days. That's what the existing policy says. What our report says is long-term closures greater than 180 days. And I think maybe the not fell out. And I'm asking, I don't know. I think that may be the issue. And so if that is the issue, then what we're just saying is that instead of going to Paul, it is going to go to TPC. Well then I don't know why why are we involved here at all? And maybe I just forgotten the
Could
logic
we
of the
be,
argument. Yeah. Mhm.
it's a good question. If we think that there are problems with the existing policy, that either because of change of, we're getting past COVID now, so we're thinking of things in a slightly different way. And just generally, should we let ourselves be so tied up with the current policy? Should we just be proposing what we think the policy should be?
Well, we certainly have the opportunity to do that at this point if we wish. So what would you be proposing? I mean, we can certainly make broader changes here, if it's appropriate, but what do you have in mind other than what we've already suggested? And right now I'm confused about why we suggested this. Why is it coming to us if it's 180 days or less?
I think because we were trying to adhere very strictly to the current policy and not make changes to it, but just other than who's making decisions about matters in the current policy. If you want to make changes if you want to propose changes to the current policy as we go through, we should be upfront and just do it. Make that recommendation. Just say that we're using this opportunity to also review the current policy. Put that up front at the beginning. Jennifer?
This might be a question for Guilford, but what would be an example of when a road has to be closed for more than 180 days? It's not permanent. It's that if they're doing like I mean, I'm thinking of Station Road when the bridge collapsed. Is it usually for an emergency like that?
That would be about it. I mean, but the road's still open. You just can't cross the one closed section. So, but yeah, a bridge would be, if a bridge or a culvert collapse, that would be the only thing that would close it for more than a short term.
So it doesn't happen very often, hopefully.
Fortunately, it doesn't happen very often.
I think the existing document as it stands is focused in this particular section on the cafe, kind of related to the changes we made during COVID. And there is no such thing as a permanent change for that particular category. It's either, it's up to 180 days, and after that, there just doesn't exist. You can't come to somebody and say, I want to permanently have this, changed for a cafe related or food establishment related thing. That's just not possible. So maybe, again, I guess I'm back to the question of the current proposed language in the report. I think it should say long-term closures not greater than 180 days in conjunction with expanding, which is the language of the existing policy. Just insert not. And then the question becomes, why is it coming to the council here? It seems it should just be, right? Because there's no such thing as a permanent in this particular category. Later, all other permanent changes, it comes to the council. And that's what we want to make sure. Nothing is in here that allows a permanent change where we don't get the final say so. And if we find that, we're going to change it. But here, it's not that. So why are we changing it? I don't understand.
I agree.
I don't understand. So it probably should just see TPC will, have authority to, to determine it. Assuming again that Paul says it's not a timeliness issue. If he says, I'd love to get this off my plate and I don't see timeliness as a problem, then our recommendation would be to send it to TPC, end of story.
Well, nothing is ever permanent in the sense that the council can always change it. So
Well, we do have a category later, we'll get to it, other requests for permanent changes to the public way. So we certainly do have a category for those kinds of changes. And in that case, it definitely comes back to us for a final say so, but it goes to TPC first. And here I'm just saying, because it's not permanent, unless somebody has a good argument for why it should go to the council, let TPC take care of it.
word permanent, it's still, you can take a road out or put a road in. You can call it permanent, but if a future council says that they think that road is that necessary, they can take it, they can close it and sell the land. And there's should the council be involved in any decision that affects a long term and or beyond? What's that long term? What's the magic date?
Well, I guess what I'm proposing here, I'm sorry, I'm out of turn, but it's essentially the same language we used up above for this particular item, which is these requests will be assigned to the TPC with monthly report for all requests and approvals. That's what I'm proposing. And get it off the council's plate, get it off Paul's plate, and they can make the decision. That's what I'm proposing.
If for 180 days or less.
Whatever, yeah, for closures, not. So again, I say you need to insert the word not. And then insert this language as opposed, replace the existing language with the language we used up above. These requests will be assigned to the TPC with monthly report for all requests and approvals. That's what I'm proposing.
Bob?
Yeah, I think the problem is with the existing policy document because in 2B, it's the same language, but it calls it short-term parking requests, and in 3C, it calls it long-term. I mean, it's really the same language, except it doesn't include the 8 parking spaces. So I think we should just strike 3C altogether. It doesn't really add anything, and it just it's just can be confusing. It's confused us. And we've been studying this for months. I mean, if you look at the language in 2C and the language 2B rather, and the language in 2C, it's same stuff, except one time it calls it short term and the other place it calls it long term. It's really referring to the second part of C, which is for all other closures, the town authority. So it's, if we're going greater than 180 days, the town council retains its authority. If you really look at the language, it's the same thing.
Yeah, Jennifer?
Yeah, I agree with what Bob and George said, and because with Andy, I don't know if it's with your lawyer hat, but you're right. If we don't define, nothing's permanent, so we have to define what the outer limit of short term is. And 180 days sounds reasonable, and sounds like what we've been using. Even if we don't state it as such, that the town seems to think if it's more than 180 days, it's not short term. So I think you're right, Andy. We have to define what short term is instead of calling it permanent. And I think what Bob and George suggested does that.
As I read this, I'm sorry, as I read this document,
180 days and no longer needs council approval.
I think the document is clear, and I may be wrong, but I think the document basically takes short term to mean anything up to 14 cumulative or successive days. 14 days is short term. Anything beyond 14 up to 180 is long term. Anything beyond 180, it doesn't either is permanent, and basically this doesn't exist. You can't get a change in this policy for beyond 180 days. You're going to have to come back and do it again or whatever. So short term is up to 14 days. Long term is anything up to 180 days. And then permanent is permanent. Permanent means this is the way it's going to be until some authority decides to change it. There's no time limit. And that doesn't happen often, but it sometimes happens. And in a case where it's permanent, whatever this situation is, it's got to come to the council. But if it's short term or long term, meaning up to 14 days short term or up to 180 days long term, then that can be handled by, we're suggesting, either the town manager or TPC, and they just tell the council what they did. That's my understanding of this document as it exists, and I'm not suggesting we change it. I don't see the confusion, at least at the moment. It's a little confusing because we're going back and forth, but I think the existing document is clear enough. And I would be reluctant to take anything out unless we see a real genuine contradiction. And I don't see it here yet, but
George, I was suggesting we strike it from the existing policy just altogether.
yeah, and I'm nervous about doing that.
Well,
Even though maybe, I'm sorry.
we would just do it as a request to the council, but the council would have to decide. I mean, it's just to me, it's just it calls it short term in one place and it calls it long term in another.
So I guess I'm not seeing that. So help me. Yeah, go ahead.
Right. No, but I mean, it's.
I'm saying every time it's short term, it should be up to 14 days. Yeah.
I misspoke. What I'm saying is the language, it's the same section. It's just in two different places. We only need to have it once. It's the same idea.
Well, Bob, 1 deals with parking only. That's 2. 2 is just parking, short term, long term. 3 is public ways, roads, sidewalks, signage, blah, blah, blah. But it's essentially public ways. So the language is repeated because 1 deals strictly with parking, the other deals with public ways, roads or sidewalks. And so it's a good question to which I don't have an answer. How often, if ever, do you have road or sidewalk changes up to 180 days for, I mean, maybe we do, but anyway, 1 deals with parking, 1 deals with public ways. That's why the language is repeated. It's not.
Fair enough.
Okay, I think that's the logic here. I know it's unless you spend a lot of time with this, which I don't recommend to anybody for their sanity, it's difficult to sort through it in a committee meeting. And if anyone has the time to go look at it again, maybe they'll see something I'm missing, but I think that's where we're at. I think it's consistent. It deals with 2 different categories.
That's fine.
Yeah, I'm sorry, and I think we should change the language here, but we'll come back to it. But I'm suggesting that we just keep it the way it is up above. Let TPC handle it.
Yep.
And for the document we're looking at, I'm beginning to think that we should take out the references to the sections in the current policy and just say what we want, and then use a red line version of changes to the public policy to put it into place within the public policy, but not to try and do it in this document. So if
We just have to make sure this document accurately reflects the language of the existing policy, because that will create great, if someone does take the time, and I know 1 or 2 counselors who will take the time to compare the existing policy with what we're proposing, they will immediately raise objections or questions or concerns legitimately, saying that the language of your report doesn't match the existing policy. So we want to make sure that the report matches the policy as it currently exists. And that's what we're trying to do. I think that's important. And we're also trying to make sure that the changes we're proposing are changes we all agree with. And also make sure that, they make sense.
The counter way of looking at it, though, is what we want to do is say what we think is the right thing to do for the policy going forward.
Mm-hmm.
And that we don't want to be twisted or hung up by what the current policy is. We want to say what we think the policy ought to be.
And when I'm arguing, Andy, and I'll shut up now, is that the language of 3C with the change not, that word not put into the text, and my suggestion that the language, these requests will be assigned to TPC, I'm suggesting for the committee's approval or disapproval, that that's in fact what we do want the policy to read. We want it to have the word long-term closures not greater than 180 days. And instead of sending it to town council for final action, I'm suggesting that what we want, namely what I'm suggesting we want, is that this should just go to TPC. Shouldn't come to the council. And that's what people need to figure. Do they want that or not? Because currently what we're suggesting is it goes to the council. and I don't think it
That's a
should
question that we should just be asking up front.
right now, exactly. So I don't know if people have thoughts on it, but that's my argument, that since it's not permanent, TPC can handle it. And if Paul wants it, Paul could come back and say, you know, I really want to keep this. Fine, goes to Paul, but it doesn't come to us.
Okay, let's see if we can do changes to the document we're looking at that reflects this. I think we can. Been sufficiently clear. Is there anything else in that section you want to talk about?
There is one thing, briefly, but are people okay with this? Because that's what I'm proposing. And maybe just a nod of heads, or maybe like we want to think about it some more. But I'm suggesting a major change to the report. A minor word inserted, not, and then a very different recommendation than the existing one in the report. And if we're agreed, then Andy will make that change. If we're not, then we should talk about it.
So my thinking is right now, having worked on this the last few days, is that we consider loosening up the references to the current, talk about, let the focus be on where we want, what we want to have for future policy. Let the red line version that we develop for changes to the policy take care of the other piece, and that we not circulate this document until those changes are made and reviewed at our next meeting. Bob?
I just wanted to say, I agree with the changes that George has suggested, because it's just the issue, whether it's parking or use of sidewalks or other signage and things like that. It seems to me that's all one and the same. In terms of removing references to the policy in this document, I'm okay with that. I don't think it matters. I think what really matters is the change to the policy. That's, you know, and that's really what will govern what the council wants to do, is does the council want to change the policy or not? And this report, you know, it's our opinion, but it really doesn't mean anything until we actually show what the changes in the policy would be.
So for the next meeting, we would try and do a red line version of changes to what we're looking at right now. And we will try and develop a red line version of changes to the current policy. And those are the two documents that will be for discussion at our next meeting.
Sounds good.
Councilor Ryan, your hand's up.
Yeah, just one other item related to this section, under so-called traffic controls. This is not something that exists in the current policy, so I was just somewhat confused as to what to do with it. And the suggestion might be simply to basically add it to 3G as new language. Because this, I guess this came from Paul. I'm not quite sure, but we've had it in our working document, our scope document from the get-go. And what we've recommended in this is that for traffic controls, that's modification of speed limits, truck limits, and other traffic controls. As you point out in your document, this is a category not included in the public ways policy. These should be considered as other requests for permanent changes to the public way. And then TPC will make a recommendation to the town council for final action. And so what I'm suggesting is, I'm just thinking about where it goes into the red line version of the policy, the existing policy document. And I guess the answer is it should just be incorporated into 3G. And 3G unfortunately has two parts. There's 3G, which deals with permanent changes to roads or sidewalks. And then that's A. And then there's B, which is all major roadway and sidewalk redesigns and other public way requests. The A section dealing with utility structures, bus shelters, benches, permanent signs, electric vehicle, blah, 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 bike share stations. We're suggesting that goes to TPC. They have final authority, but major roadway or sidewalk redesigns or other public way requests, which I'm suggesting would include then these traffic controls. That traffic controls would actually go into that second part of 3G, which means it goes eventually to the council for final say. So are people okay? Does that make sense? That traffic controls, changing speed limits, truck limits, whatever that means, and other traffic controls, we want this eventually to come to us. That's where it should go. Is that the understanding of you, Andy, and of the committee? Just add it in and put it under the second part.
Yes, and
And I guess the question is why? Why do we want to have a say on this? Is it speed limits? Is that basically it? I think it's just the idea of speed limits. That we want to have final say. We don't want to leave that up to TPC. I mean, they're the experts. But why do we want to have a say on this? It seems like, just thinking off the top of my head, why shouldn't this go into the first part of that, where like bus shelters, benches, blah, 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 it goes to TPC and they get to review and act.
I think there's a lot in it. It's a problem that I'm having is truck limits. I don't think we'll ever have the expertise to deal with, because that goes into questions of the strength of the road and the strength of the
Right. What about speed limits? We're not experts in speed limits. You know, why do we want a final say on that? I'm asking. I'm just, you know.
Well, it's not so much in reducing them is if they say, well, we can take this road from 25 to 40. I think counselors might be opposed to that.
Well, we'd assume as experts that they would have very good reasons for doing that.
I understand that, but
Yeah,
there's also the practical matter that most people don't want a 40-mile-per-hour speed limit in front of their house. I don't know. I mean, I'm looking at this and I'm trying to think about, you're making a good point, George. I think the speed limits are just such an issue, but on the other hand, you know, Guilford's, he's waking up his thing here. he basically, you know, he does traffic controls all the time as part of the general DPW mission. And, you know, he does speed controls, he does traffic calming measures. We just, you know, recommended in JCPC that he get $50,000 more to deal with traffic calming issues. And some of that is flashing signs, some of it's crosswalks, some of it's, you know, you're overdoing the speed limit. I don't know if Guilford, you don't change speed limits, do you?
No, there's a policy or a procedure that has to be followed to change speed limits.
Yeah, I know that.
And it does have to be voted by the council or their designee. So someone does have to, whether we're going up or we're going down, there has to be a vote by the council or the keepers of the way, however, to actually do that.
Okay. So we can't delegate that.
Is that your thought,
or if
Guilford?
it's council or its designee.
You could do the designee, but
Okay, great. DPC.
Um,
Do you have a problem with that, Gilbert? Would you rather, maybe you don't want to say, but I mean, before a body which would include someone from your department, maybe you personally or some designee, and two counselors and police, wouldn't they be better suited to deal with this kind of issue? What role would you see for the council unless the law required it?
For a speed limit reduction or increase?
The kind, yeah, what's called loosely traffic controls, which,
Well,
speed
there's
limits,
another
stop limits.
piece to it we'll come to in a second, but let's stick with speed limits for a second. I'll give an example. There's a resident on the section of Northeast Street that is from Main up to Strong Street. It's 45 and then it drops to 40. And that resident of that section would like to have it be 40 all the way through. Doesn't want it to be 45 in front of his property and doesn't think it makes sense to have it be higher there than the section that is further north.
So it
It's
actually
reasonable.
at some point did make sense because they did the speed regulations and put the regulations in place. So to change those speed limits, there is a process that has to be followed by the state. The state said this procedure, and that procedure includes the state and the council. So however the council wishes to interact in that process is how they want to. But we would have to hire somebody or do a speed study and actually do a formal investigation and then make a recommendation on what the speed should be. And then the state has to agree, and then the town has to agree to do the speed limit. So that is a process that's well ingrained in how it's supposed to how it's supposed to happen.
And George's question is whether that process is better placed in the commission, which will include representatives of your department, police department, and planning department.
I think either one is fine. I think a commission can handle it if it's allowed, and I think if the council wants to keep it, it would be a very quick. It's been through the process of study and recommendations, and this is what's recommended, and it's just up or down at that point for the council if they want to keep it.
I'm sorry, I didn't take it down. I didn't, I mean, I could go with the commission. We could delegate to the commission on this. I don't think, I mean, if the commission is basically going to make a recommendation to the council, they're going to reach a decision that they think is the right thing to do. So, they can bring it to the council, but I agree with George in that other than the politics of it, we don't really have much to add.
Councilor Ryan?
Well, I obviously agree with myself, and I agree with Bob, that we should put this in the first part of G, which sends it to TPC. The second part of G, the existing 3G, which is major roadway or sidewalk redesigns and public ways requests relating to roads, exclusive of everything else, comes to the council. So that's what I'm going to do based on this discussion, unless I, at least in my draft of the public policy document, I'm going to put it there.
Yeah, I'm fine with the speed limits. I did want to come back to traffic controls, however, because there's a difference between a lot of our intersection changes have been to change from traffic lights to roundabouts. That is if that is traffic control,
Yeah.
something that the council wants to maintain final say on.
Well, a roundabout would be a permanent change to a public way, right? So that comes to us no matter what. So I don't think traffic controls, I don't understand this terminology, but I'm sure Guilford does, but I would not think that it would include roundabouts in that sense. I'm not sure what it includes. But, and maybe Guilford has a contribution he can make or clarification, but certainly a roundabout would come to us because it's a major change to a roadway.
Then there's one other piece, and that is if the you want to change a traffic light to have a dedicated left turn lane, that may take land taking. Once you get into land taking, you're back to the council for sure. Guilford.
So the traffic control approvals that's required by the state is if you want to put a stop sign in, must be approved by the keepers of the way or the council's designee. Yield sign, if you want to change it to one way, no right turn on red. Those are things that are traffic control that is definitely has to be voted on, has to be voted on by the council. That says, yes, we agree to these. The state has given the council the only authority that's needed for stop signs now, so it's only the council for a stop sign and a yield sign. So those are included in that topic of traffic control. If we went from a went from a two-way stop to a four-way stop, those would be the council doing that. And then if we decide to go to traffic lights, that would be a major redesign of the intersection, and that would come back to the roadway redesign as well. So those are all kind of tied together as why they would come to the council or to your designee.
Right, and I'm arguing that we would send this all to TPC and let them deal with it and not come back to us. They'd be our designee for these kinds of things, is my argument. I'm not saying I'm right, I'm just saying that's my argument. And I need someone to convince me that we should be spending our time discussing right turn on red, yield signs, stop signs. We bring nothing to it except the political, maybe a constituent really wants a stop sign at this intersection, and maybe we agree with them. The rest of us are looking at it like, why are we? So I'm suggesting all this goes to TPC as our designee. And major roadway changes, that comes to us. So you're gonna put in a roundabout, that comes to us, and if there's a land taking, that clearly comes to us. But everything else goes to TPC. And
Yeah, I agree. I think that would make the process a lot more efficient.
I hope, yeah.
And it doesn't get referred to well, assuming it doesn't get referred.
Are you suggesting we're not an efficient
This is-
body? I don't, I'm insulted.
Well,
We have
about
13 of the
how
most
this
efficient
is.
public servants I can imagine.
Jennifer?
I agree. I think we can delegate this.
Jennifer?
I'm being so agreeable today. I just want to say I agree. Yeah, no, I don't think the council needs to discuss yield signs. I mean, signage, excuse me, generally, I don't think the council needs to.
Now, we know that when
Discuss
this
at
gets to
all.
the council as a body, all bets are off. But I guess we as a group at the moment, it sounds like we think this is the way it should go.
Maybe we should
And I
just,
hope we can give polls too. I mean, I just think
Right. I'd be happy to handle
all of
them all.
that, yeah.
I know, right. If state laws allows it, then we can designate them. But we'll see what the lawyers say. God help us.
I think that what we were coming down to is that if state law says that it's possible for the council to delegate, that it gets delegated, and it's really guided by state law. But that seems to be the general principle that we're coming to. And there may be pushback from the council, but we need to hear it.
Right.
Puts it out cleanly.
Mhm.
Okay, so we'll try and make that a big point in the document we're developing. So TPC process. We said that if a public hearing is required by our charter, they have to do it, but they can also hold other public hearings
Mhm.
if they wish. Because I think it's good, an appropriate process. Anything else in there? The money part of it, we've talked about at the last meeting, and I tried to be consistent with that discussion. There's nothing else there. We're giving it a pause. Then we should get on to public requests on transportation and parking matters. And I tried to encapsulate some of our discussion and make it be very practical. Is there's anything in either of those sections, otherwise we should get on to membership and leadership. Membership is what we discussed at the last meeting. Bob?
Yeah, I would just add with the counselors under membership, just add a parentheses of or designees, just so in particular, the chair of the finance committee has a pretty hard job as it is without being a member of this body. And they could designate someone else, I think it should be someone on the finance committee.
Yes.
But it would really be up to them. And I don't know whether, George, you see the vice president needing to have this flexibility or not, but I just think if we put it in there, it gives them a little flexibility.
I like the idea of designee for the FinCom chair for the reasons that you give. A FinCom chair might decide, I want it, and fine. And they might decide, I really like to hand it off to another member of the committee, assuming they can find somebody. I think we'll probably get some pushback on this, and I don't know if we can make a strong argument one way or the other. I kind of like just saying it's going to be this and this, and sort of try to remove the eventual or the inevitable horse trading and sort of like I want it, and we have to go through these long and unpleasant votes about who gets on it and who doesn't. I think the key I think I've gotten from our discussion is we just want, I mean, I was reluctant to this initially, period, but I've come around to see, okay, we want counselors on this body. And I say, fine, but if we can at least make it as specific as possible, so that it's not a constant battle about who gets on it and who doesn't. But I can see counter objections, but I hope this will go the way it's headed, but anyway, I like it.
So the only change that we're getting out of this is say two counselors, the counselor vice president, and the chair or another member of the finance committee.
Okay, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, me too, because I don't think the chair should be required if they
Right.
just don't have the bandwidth.
And people might say, why the vice president? You know, I mean, you could just say, okay, and the other person chosen by the council president. It's just, hate to get into a vote about this, but we do it for other things. I don't know. So it's just a suggestion. We'll see how it flies.
Yeah, we'll see how it flies.
Right. Is the vice president is elected, so it seems more democratic than just having the president appoint. I don't know.
Hmm. Yeah.
And a member of the Commission on Disabilities were leaving in.
Yeah, I guess we felt that. But yeah, right.
Yeah, the only other person I had thought about, but it's never an official designated person, is somebody, whoever is assigned to the role of being hearing officer for parking violations. But I decided to leave. I did not include that or not propose. I guess I'm just saying I thought about it, but I'm not pushing it. Pardon
Not
me.
as a voting member. Not as a voting member. I don't think. They could be called on. They could be asked to come, but they shouldn't be permanent voting members, I don't think. Sorry, Bob. Bob has his hand up.
No. I just thought of this, but are all the votes a simple majority, or do we want to designate certain votes to be something other than a simple majority? I mean, let's keep it simple in my mind, but you know, that I think will be an issue that comes up, and at least I think we need to state one way or the other. I think we should state clearly that, all votes are simple majority unless, I don't know, unless somebody else has a better idea.
Jennifer?
I mean, I think I'm okay with the simple majority because if something's really important, we've decided it gets referred to the council. So maybe it's simpler just to, if we're gonna make it state it, which we probably should, that it be a simple majority.
We should state it one way or the other.
Yep.
So,
Probably under the process section.
yeah.
Okay. Leadership and staff paragraph. It's really just a couple sentences. Councilor Ryan?
I want to raise one final thing before we're done. I know we're time is starting to run out here, but I feel strongly that someplace in this document, or at least in the charge, when we finally get around to it, I think we should make it clear that TPC is empowered to be proactive, not just reactive. Right now, this is a very reactive document, which is fine because a lot of what they're going to deal with is stuff that gets, put on their plate. I'd like them to be encouraged or empowered to also make meals of their own. They can take initiatives that they can then explore and bring to the council in these areas. I'm thinking particularly in bike and pedestrian safety, safe routes to schools. Maybe some of you can think of some other categories we can include. I would like this body to feel like they are empowered and encouraged to also think long-term related to transportation and parking. Now, they may find, as often is the case that we see in town government, you're so busy dealing with the fires of the week, you never get a chance to think about the long-term, et cetera. But I'm hoping that they will, and I'd like us to make some provision for that, either in the report, maybe just as a preview, and definitely in the charge, if you all agree that they should also be encouraged to be proactive, not just reactive.
Yeah, I tried to get a little bit at that in the point where it indicates that issues can come before the council at the recommendation of town staff. so that anybody who's on the things can be suggested by members of the public. Maybe we just add members of the commission too.
I mean, they're the experts and they are, we hope, including the residents who will have, I assume, hopefully some of them will have, experience with bike safety, pedestrian safety, safe routes to schools. These will be things that they either care about passionately or are interested in. And I would like to think that that commission could, if they agree and the chair, puts it on, they could take it up and explore and even make recommendations to the council about what they think should be done.
I'll try and do something, I've written down proactive onto my notes so that I'll what I'm gonna do after today's meeting is do a red line, do all changes red line to this version so that it's visible to all of you what I've done, and then we'll take that up at our next meeting along with the revised draft of the policy, public waste policy. Jennifer?
Yeah, I would definitely, I mean, I think Paul also envisioned it, that this commission would do some planning and have recommendations as the planning board is empowered to do. Maybe even can look at some of the language there. I mean, that's how we got University Drive was, overlay district was the planning board, decided, I think it was the year before last, that they were going to actually come up with some recommendations or develop them and bring them to the council. So I think that should be part of the charge of this commission. And I just want to thank you again, Andy. This was a really helpful document, and thoughtful. So thank you.
I will try and work that into the next version.
Is this going to be on the next council agenda?
No, we never intended to have it on the council agenda. The question was only once it is approved as where we are for what we're thinking about, then we want to get it to councilors and the TPC for comments to us, not for action.
Right, but I mean, were you seeing this as a report in the next council meeting packet? Because I'm wondering if,
Probably
or you want to
not.
get it back to us? Yeah, okay.
Because if we have to, I think we've done enough that we're not ready to vote on it yet. I would be uncomfortable with that. So closing this discussion out, and I think we can be very quick on the questions. On Heatherstone Road, what Lynn and Pat, as the District 2 councilors, have put together is a district meeting, which will focus on traffic and specifically mentioning Heatherstone is one issue, but not, I think that their vision was not to close it out. And Guilford was going to be attending that district meeting. So I think my recommendation is to make that public listening session, but that we also, before making a recommendation about whether or not to make any changes to Heatherstone, should also think about who else we need to hear from. And I thought that it might be helpful to make sure that we at least reach out to the public schools and particularly the bus drivers for the school buses. Secondly, to PVTA, because there's PVTA buses that are running on those streets, and major truckers that use the street. Seemed to me, one other was fire department. I would like to hear from them. And I would like to hear from at least USA Trucking, because they have the experience of larger trucks driving down there. So my thought was that in addition, that we would write something to those like Chief Strongman and BVTA, and invite them at least to submit comments to us or attend a committee meeting when we take this up. So it's not just the listening session at District 2 meeting, but that goes beyond. So that's my recommendation. Councilor Ryan.
So on May 1, is this a official TSO public listening session? Or is this a District 2 meeting that members of TSO will be attending and listening in, but will not say zip? And I'll just be taking notes, and we don't need to have an officially posted meeting because we're not deliberating. We're just invited guests. We're not going to make presentations. We're not going to make statements. We're not going to do anything. We're just there to hear what people have to say. Is that it, or is this something more formal?
We might have to post it as a meeting. Athena will advise us on that later, because we would all be in attendance at something where we are ultimately.
We'd be in the audience. We'd just be, I just tune in and listen.
But I think that we would leave it to Lynn and Pat's meeting,
Mhm.
and but we would be clear that one of the purposes of the meeting is to provide input that will be considered by TSO, and that's why we are attending the meeting.
Are we going to be speaking? Would you be speaking?
I don't think we have to be.
Well, I would prefer we not say anything, but I'm just asking. I think we should keep our mouths shut. But if we're going to open our mouths, then we should be decided on what we're going to say. People may have questions. Are we going to answer questions? Are we, again, I'd be reluctant to do that, but maybe, I don't know. I'm just asking. What's our role?
I have an idea, but Jennifer?
Well, Guilford's going to be at the meeting. I can't imagine we could answer any.
I'd much
Question
rather
that
have
he
Guilford
couldn't-
answer questions. and let
Right. I
him do
mean,
all the
I can't
talking.
imagine.
No, I
yeah,
think our role is only to answer process. And I think what we should say is that TSO will need to make a recommendation regarding whether to keep the road as currently designed, and that will be considering comments made at this meeting and comments made directly to the TSO at a subsequent meeting.
Is it a Zoom meeting?
Mhm.
Not
Yes. I believe it is.
I'd like to meet actually at Heatherstone Road, but
Be a little cold. It might be raining.
I guess what
Yeah.
I'm saying is I don't think I would prefer personally that this be a District 2 meeting. The District 2 councilors have called it. They just point out that a number of members, maybe all the members, I don't know, some of us may be busy. We can always watch it on Zoom. But anyway, some of the TSO members are present to listen, but they are not here to say anything or answer questions. And we do have our DPW chief here, and he will answer questions and do whatever he can to address your concerns. But this is not an official meeting of TSO, and we're not speaking, and we're just noted that we're here in the audience. That's it. We're just in the audience. And some of us may not be there. And I don't want to be, yeah.
That's my preference too. Just be
Okay.
in the audience. Not
Yeah.
gonna answer.
Yeah.
Yeah. The Lynn or Pat could make the process point
I
that
want to make sure they understand it and they're clear, yes. And that, because I've already had one TSO meeting that day. I'm not too excited about having another one.
There's a council on aging event at the same time, but
Exactly. Some of us may have things we have to do. It's not that we're indifferent, but so I just want to be sure that the two district counselors are clear on that and they're okay with it. And that we as a committee are clear that this is not an official meeting. You're not required to be there. And you're in the audience and you're not going to say zip.
unless we're advised that the open meeting law requires us, since we will, if there's a quorum of the committee that's present and we're listening to matter that is relevant to pending committee action, we would then post it, but it's not, but it would be for that purpose only. Councilor Lord?
And then that would be another question, if all 5 of us showed up and there's 2.
You
then
know,
we
like we go to a, there's.
then we have a quorum of the town council, so maybe one of us should make sure we're either not there or stay in the audience. Right, because
Right.
there's 5 of us and 2 of them.
That is correct. Good point. Good point, Councilor Lord. That's right. So we should definitely stay in the audience. Anyway, that's my 2 cents.
Well, the problem with district meetings by Zoom is that everybody's has the right.
That's true. So turn off your camera, turn off your sound.
I'll check with Lynn and Athena about that. So we have a plan for that, and it's nothing more. As far as the bylaw that has been referred to us, I think at some point, as soon as we can, we should schedule a committee meeting when Chief Ting and Councilor Haneke can be present, because they're this Councilor Haneke's the sponsor of the bylaw change, and she has made it very clear that this is something that's recommended by the chief. And I don't have a date in mind. We have to do some planning on that.
Good.
Anything else, Councilor Ryan?
I just want to make sure that this is not going to be on our agenda on May 1. I'd like May 1 to be essentially cleared for continuing what we're doing today. We still have a fair amount of work to do and hopefully a vote. Hopefully we'll vote on May 1. But yeah, I just wanted to hear that we're not going to deal with urination on May 1.
No, if we add anything,
That's a sentence I thought I'd never say.
if we add anything, it would be if Paul's going to be able to attend the May 1 meeting and has something to report to us about the waste hauler issue that was referenced earlier. All right. I don't think we have anything else. Is there a motion?
I move we adjourn.
Second.
So, Councilor Ryan,
Aye.
Sorry. You call on me? Yep.
yes.
Yes.
You talking to me?
Councilor Lord,
Aye.
Jennifer,
yes.
and I'm a yes. So we are adjourned, and I thank you.
Yeah. Thank you, Guilford. Thank you, Athena.
Yeah. Thank you.
you.
Thanks, everyone. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.